Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin. I am popping in real quick to do an intro to my highlighter repressing video. I think the entire repressing footage is like 45 minutes, but I do repress like 5 or 6 different items in this video. So strap in, get yourself a snack. I will go ahead and at the end of the video, I will show you everything that I was able to repress and what it looks like, as well as share the weights for the highlighter palette that will be rolling back into my project pan for the year. So if you guys want just a video that is on in the background with just me talking and repressing some highlighters, you're going to want to stick around for this one, but let's go ahead and get into it. Hey everyone, we are going to be doing my highlight repressing, and let me open this one up for you. So this is the Pat McGrath highlighter that we're going to be working with, and then I do have this one, which is Fenty Beauty. This is Girl Next Door and Chic Freak, and then this one in here is a mix of the Fenty highlighter in Lightning Dust and Fire Crystal. I do have my Tarte highlighting palette, which you guys have been seeing along the way on my panning journey, and this shade here is original to the palette. So this is the original Daylight shade, and then this Skylight shade is actually Candlelight and Skylight mixed together to create this shade, because Candlelight was too dark for me in the original palette. I do also have this mini of Becca Moonstone. This is the only one that I'm not going to franken. This shade actually works really well for me as it is. So this one I wanted to show you guys, but we are not going to be touching this one. This one is going to stay intact. So I'm going to put this one to the side and we're going to focus on these highlighters here. So you guys might have seen that in this Fenty one right here, I am missing half of the Settle shade, and that is because I did put it into one of my blushes in my blush palette. So this one right here, this is this half of this highlighter, and then this is half of the light shade in the Jouer Rose Gold blush that I ended up frankening, which let me grab that one too. Telling you, lots of frankening going on in my collection, but I can show you this one. So this is just a mini of the Jouer Rose Gold. So what I did is I kept this shade over here as it is, and then this one I took half of the pale pink shade that was in here and I mixed it with some of the Makeup Geek blush in Desire to make this beautiful berry toned blush. Then I took the other half of this light toned blush and I mixed it with that highlighter and gave me this. So this right here is actually very, very light, and it almost could be a highlighter. It hardly shows up, so I have to figure out what I want to do with this. If I feel like I need to tone down a few other highlighters, I don't mind reaching into this one and kind of piecing together some of this into my other highlights, but I wanted to show you where the half of that highlighter went. So I'm going to try to make this as empirical as I can. I am going to, and I have to try to stay in frame here, I am going to weigh everything as I go along just to see, I guess, how much powder I'm using, how much of the product, kind of making sure that I'm staying also within the weights that these pans in here can accommodate for. So on the back of here, it says each one of these pans is 5 grams. So whenever I put the new highlighters into these pans, I need to be mindful that only 5 grams of product is going to fit in here. I had said in my project pan video that I'm going to leave this one alone because I actually really do like this cool toned, my spatulas are making noise. I like this cool toned shade right here. So I mean, it could be a tiny bit dark on me, but it really does look beautiful on my skin. So I'm going to leave that one alone, but I do want to franken this one down here. So feel like I'm losing my voice a little bit. I just filmed my Project Pan, so I've been talking for a little bit, but let me see if I can move some of this stuff out of the way, because I don't want to have my scale on my towel, because I think that will throw off my weights. So let me actually fold back the towel for a second, and then we will start weighing some of the products so that we can get started breaking them down. So this is just a jewelry scale I got off of Amazon. This is actually always linked in the bottom of my videos under my panning items that I use. So let me see. So this is the empty compact for lightning dust and fire crystal. So I'm just going to set this one to the side since we are not going to need that one. But this one here, this is the Girl Next Door and Chic Freak, and so I'm going to go ahead and weigh this one in total. So this one is Fenty Girl Next Door, and that is weighing in at 60.78. Hopefully I'm not shaking the camera when I'm writing, because that would bug the crap out of me. So this one is the Lightning Dust and Fire Crystal. I'm going to go ahead and just weigh the pan by itself. Fenty Lightning Dust Fire Crystal, and that one is 1283. I'm going to weigh the highlighting palette, 113.26, and then I'm going to weigh this whole palette here. So this is the Pat McGrath, that is 119.11. All right, I am going to weigh some other things as we go along, and I'm sorry to be making so much noise with these spatulas. Let me move them over here onto my towel. I am going to be weighing things as we go along, so I'll keep my scale over to the side. I do have, put my towel back so that we can get started. I do have my favorite mixing container here, and then I also have some rubbing alcohol, and I have a rubbing alcohol in a sprayer and then also in my dropper. And then my two spatulas that I want to use, and then also I have some empty dishes over here that I'm going to be putting the products in as I mix them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the products separate. So let's see here. Will it actually weigh things? All right, so this first one is, let me tear the weight. It doesn't want to do it on the, what am I going to do? What if I do it on the back of the Z palette? Will the scale like that? If I tear the weight, okay, it likes that one. So we are at 0. So I'm going to take the Lightning Dust and Fire Crystal, and I'm going to empty that one all together and see how much actual powder we have. All right, so I got pretty much everything out of that pan. And for the product itself, we're at 5.25 grams. 5.25 grams. Alrighty. So we'll pull that off. Let's do, I think I do want to keep these two separate because if I want to mix something in a little bit more pinky, I do want to keep these two shades separate. So let me do this. I have another one of these little containers. Let me tear the weight, and I'm going to put the more shimmery side into this container here. Oh, puppy dog is on the move. So that one is good. And for this one, let's do the, what do I want to name these? Let's do just left and right. So left and right. So this is the right side pan, and that is 3.45. And then I don't need a big container for what's left in this one, so let me see if I have a little container for that. Let me use one of these. So tear the weight. All right. Then we're just going to empty this other side into the little container. Try not to waste any and get it all in there. Okay, so that one is all empty as well. And we have 1.92 grams. And that one. Now I'm going to get to my bigger containers. These are the like Anchor, so the knockoff Pyrex. Hopefully, say my scale should handle these, but it might take. Okay, we're at a good weight. So taking apart this Pat McGrath one, which again kind of makes me a little bit sad, but this is way too dark for my skin tone, so it has to go. I'm not using it, so it needs to be able to be turned into something else. So let's go ahead. Oh, well, that was easy. This just comes right out in two pieces. Look at that. Easiest one I've had to take out. But for the Pat McGrath, we have 3.55, so not a whole lot of product in there. And we have one more to do, so let me tear the weight on this one. All right, and we're going to take the last shade out of this palette, so we're doing this one right here and taking this one out. And that one is, let me get in frame, that one is good as well. So we have 5.05. All right, let me go ahead and I'll get my scale out of here. Hopefully my numbers were relatively close. And then I think what I need to do is I definitely need to clean this. So let me do this without blinding you guys. And this is just rubbing alcohol in a sprayer and a clean washcloth. I can get one of my old brushes in here, scrub the corners, get all of that product out. And I'm not worried about this one getting wet because it's just rubbing alcohol, so it'll evaporate and everything will be fine. I'm going to take the back of the brush with the towel wrapped around it and just go around my edges. Wipe the alcohol off of this palette here, and we'll just keep that on there so we don't blind you with the mirror. So this is going to be the main palette that I am repressing in. So I think that this is where I want to have my focus, but oh, actually I'm going to need to have it flat, so I need to do something else to cover the mirror up. Let me get, I think the last time I used Post-it notes, so let me go ahead and grab some Post-its, and I'm going to cover up that mirror. All right, now we're good with our palette that we're going to be repressing into. So let me actually move this palette, and we're going to bring in all of my shades and see what we want to do. All right, so we have Fenty, 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 Pat McGrath, and Tarte. So I know the Pat McGrath one is too dark. These ones here are light, and then of course we have pink. So I think probably what I'm going to want to do is take half of, like, just take one big chunk from here, quite a bit of this, and maybe a smidge of pink, and mix those together and see what we get. Really, I would not even be upset if I ended up mixing all of these together and making one shade, but you guys were right in saying that it might be nice for me to have a couple shades that are a little bit different from each other. So let me go ahead, and this is the Tarte one. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to just, my hands are clean, y'all, and it's my makeup, but I'm going to grab 1/2 of the Pat McGrath, and then, actually, I have a little bit of a scooper. I have a scooper, so I'll get my scooper. So let's do some of this Fenty one to lighten it up. Ooh, I forgot. Let me do this because I need to be mindful of my weight. So I do need my scale back. So let me do this. I have these little beakers. I don't know if that will hold 5 grams though, but we will try. So let me go ahead and scoop out my big piece of Pat McGrath and we'll put that in there. And then we'll take these pieces of the Fenty highlight, put them in there. I said I wanted to do a little bit of this pink, and then the rest is this light colored Fenty. And maybe we'll get it to 4 grams, get it blended up and see what we think about the color. And I'll pick up that piece that I dropped on the scale. So this is our 4 grams. I'm going to take that little chunk and just dump it into my Tatcha container. And then let me see. Actually, I'm going to take the back of the brush again and just kind of get everything tamped down and mixed in here. It's nice to have like the sides of the container to kind of like squish your stuff up against because it helps kind of break up the bigger pieces. But let me get that into here and see what we're looking like. All right, so the highlighter is mixed on the back of this brush, so I'm just going to put it onto my hand and rub that in and see how that looks. So it's still a little bit dark. It creates a little bit of a shadow that way. So we get a little bit of a shadow from it, but not that bad. So I kind of like this one. I don't know how light I'm going to be able to really, like, realistically get it because we are starting with such a dark base on the Pat McGrath one. But let me just break some of these pieces up. I think I'm going to take a little bit of the Tarte highlighter and mix it in here. Again, I don't know if this will make it any lighter because this is a darker gold shade, but I want to at least try. And I'm not taking much, just a tiny little scoop here, and we'll mix that in. Oh, that might have lightened it a little bit. But again, I think this is kind of what we're going to end up working with. All right, so off camera, I went ahead and I just measured out 4.5 grams of powder. So we'll dump that in here, and we're going to press this as our first one. Again, I think I'm working with what I got here with the shades, and I don't think I'm going to get something that is completely perfect for my skin tone, but we will work with what we got. So let me move that out of the way. We're going to bring our palette back. And we're going to mix this up. So there's quite a bit of highlight in there, so we will probably need quite a bit of rubbing alcohol. But in my last repressing video, I let you guys know that you're kind of looking for the consistency of a thick dough, so you want it to kind of all come together and absorb the liquid, and actually that might be perfect. Let me turn it towards me and stir some so I can see it, but ooh, yeah, that's almost the perfect consistency because you don't want it to be too runny. You kind of want it to stay within those nuggets, but really absorb that liquid. So let me go ahead and pull this towards me a little bit, and we'll load this into this far pan right here. And of course, I will need to spread this out and make it look all pretty But let's get our product in the pan first. Since this is 4.5 grams, it should fill it up pretty nicely. Let me turn this towards me a little bit so I can actually get in there nicely. Just got the rest of our crumbles out of there. And this doesn't need to be perfect because I'll show you guys what tool I ended up picking up. But I do want to get it at least sort of evenly distributed in there. So I do use Kleenex to press, but my secret weapon is these are usually used for wax seals, but they have ones that are blanks. So they don't have an imprint on them. So I'm actually going to spray this down with rubbing alcohol and clean this off. But there's still going to be a Kleenex between this and the product. But I got this one, and I did actually have to sand it down a little bit to make it thinner, to make it to where it fits into this pan. But I specifically got this one to fit this pan because I knew I was going to be doing this repressing. So first press looks pretty good, but I still want to even it out a little bit more, get into those corners, maybe get a little of that bulk out of the middle. And this is where it's really beneficial if your consistency is not too watery, because you can manipulate it and it kind of keeps its form. So with it turned towards me, let me go ahead and do a good press. Looking better, but the perfectionist in me wants to make this look really nice. Ooh, that looks nice. So that is our first pan done. I am being summoned by my husband for a second, so let me go see what he needs and we will come back and we will make 2 more highlighters. Apparently the dogs were being cute and I had to go look and see. So I'm going to set this aside since our first pan is done, and let's make another highlighter. So I'm not too worried about cleaning this out too well. I mean, these are highlighters that I am joining together, so I'm not worried about like cross-contamination, but I'll still give it a little bit of a wipe with my washcloth and a spray of rubbing alcohol. But let me see, what are we gonna do next? Okay, let me see if I can tear my weight while it's on a towel. All right, so that's done. I think the next one that I want to do, let's do a pinky one. So I'm thinking mixing some of this really pink one from Fenty and then this really gold one from Tarte. I'm gonna dip my finger into this one. Let me show, dip my finger. And then I'm gonna dip my finger into this one, so that I have some from each. And I'm going to try here, just mixing these together and see what we get. So that'll be too dark, but that actually makes a really nice glowy blush. So I really might need to stick this Fenty one to the side and use it for a blush later on. I really don't think that this dark of a pink is going to work well as a highlight on my skin. So this one I might just have to say this is not going to be a highlight for me. But I still have this part of the Fenty one, and I still have this gold one from the Tarte. So actually, let me spray my, even though, I mean, that creates a beautiful gold to pink shift highlight, but that's not what will work for my skin. So let me pick up more of the gold and some of the lighter pink, and I'll put those together. Ooh, see, I like that. That is just gold enough that it'll look really nice on my skin. So I think what I want to do is dump all of this in here and see how much I have, and then make up the rest with this one. So I got to turn my scale back on and get my weights right. Okay, so it zeroed back out. Let's go ahead and dump this whole thing in. So that is a 1.73. Then we're going to take the gold highlight from Tarte, and we'll put enough in here to give us 4.5 grams. So that is a little bit over, but we'll do all right. Because actually, the Tarte one says that there was only 5 grams per pan, but the gold one already had a pan on it, and I got 5.05 grams out of it. So I think that I can fit more than 5 grams into that pan, no problem. So this is going to be our next one. So let me go ahead and crush this one up real nice. And we're going to do the same thing with this one of getting all the chunks out, and just running a brush handle or something around the outside here is a really good way of crushing all those bigger pieces up and getting everything incorporated together. Alrighty, so we got a nice fine powder there. So we are going to make our paste. I actually really enjoy using this spoon spatula, but I think I put 4 dropperfuls into the last one. Let me try starting with that and see where we're at. Different formulas are going to soak up the alcohol at different rates, because I'm sure depending on what the ingredients are, different powder ingredients are going to absorb water differently, or not water, but alcohol differently. But see, we got some really good looking nuggets in there. It's kind of coming together as a dough. So let me kind of prop that up, grab our palette, and we'll put this one back into daylight where it came out of. So we'll get everything off of the spoon here. Actually, let me get that back into here because it's easier to scrape off on the... That came out really clean. So we'll go ahead and get all of this pressed in, and we'll do the same thing with my little wax seal press of getting it nice and flat in the corners. What I need is, if any of you guys are bakers, I need an offset spatula to get into these corners. That would probably be perfect. Could probably use something like a palette knife, like what painters use, because they're nice and small, but that is not something that I have invested in yet. But I got it nice and flat in there. I'm going to take a new tissue because this one is nice and used. And we're going to go ahead and do our first pressing. So it usually works better if I do have it flat with the mirror up. So we'll do our first go. All right. And I wish that I could show you guys like the finished swatches, and I'll have to come back. So I'm going to film an intro and outro on a different day. And when this is all dry, I'll be able to show you swatches of everything. So we'll be able to see what shades we actually came up with. But let me go ahead and I'm going to push a little bit down towards the bottom to get our product in the corners. Let me work on this one a little bit more with the mirror up, and I will press it a couple more times. We still have quite a bit. I don't know if, yeah, you guys can see how wet that is. So we still have quite a bit of alcohol coming out of that powder. So let me just work on getting that nice and flat in there. Of course, if you guys are repressing, you guys saw in my last video that I think I used the square e.l.f. lipstick to repress this, so you do not need special tools, but just because I knew I was going to be repressing so many pans in this one palette, I wanted to go ahead and get something that would make it a little bit easier. All right, so that is really looking good. Since, of course, my press doesn't cover the whole thing, I do end up with these little lines in the middle, but nothing that you just can't tap out a little bit with your finger. This one over here is already drying really nicely, but we can definitely see that we have a lighter color down here and a little bit deeper of a color down here. This one is deep also, but again, more cool toned, and this one still does work on my skin tone. So we have to figure out what we're putting in this last one right there. And I think what I might do is take the remaining 3 powders and basically use all of these two and then make up the difference with this one, and then I'll mix the remainder of this one and this one back, and I'll put it back into the Pat McGrath palette, and that will be a blush, a really shimmery blush for me. That's what I'm gonna do, and that'll make that a complete blush palette with the Tarte palette, or with the Pat McGrath palette. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So I'm going to mix these two together and see how much my weight is and see how much I need to add to this one, just to give us a little bit different of a color from the one we just made up here. So it's showing 0.02. It's on the towel. That's the best I can do with it. So I'm not being completely scientific with these, but let me go ahead and get this into here. So this is the remainder of the Fenty Lightning Dust and Fire Crystal. So that's all of that one. And that whole one was 5.25 grams. And then we're going to take the rest of the gold Tarte one. I'm just scraping down the sides here. So these two are now empty. I can put those to the side. We have 3.58, so we have quite a bit that we could do with this Pat McGrath one. But of course I don't want to add too much, because again, this one is dark on my skin. But to make a little bit more of a different shade, I'll get us up to about 4 grams with adding just a little bit of the Pat McGrath. All right, that gets us just about at 4 grams. And so this is going to be our last highlighter that we're making before we also do a blush. Let me go ahead and clean this side of my spoon and we'll get to mixing. These spatulas here are also down in my description box, and I list those under my panning tools. So those are at the bottom of every single one of my videos. As of right now, none of my links are affiliated. I don't get any sort of kickback from them. Those links just, I make them out of the goodness of my heart, because I know a lot of you guys ask me where I get some of my products. If at any point in time I get to the point where I am affiliating any of my links, I will always denote that in my descriptions box. But for right now, those links are just for your convenience. So we have this last one right here, and I'm kind of curious. Let me do the side of my arm. And of course, that is a very heavy swatch, but that is Can you guys even see it? See that? No, that is a beautiful shade for my skin tone. Okay, I'm happy with that. Very happy. I think I'm going to be a little daring and add a tiny bit of pink to this. We have the room, so I'm going to add a little bit of pink, and we're going to mix that up. I don't think the pink is going to do enough to change the color, but maybe just add a tiny bit of rosiness to this shade. So we are all mixed up. We're going to do our 4 dropper fulls. I think that's what I came up with. That's 3. And I'll have number 4 on standby, but let me see how we do with the 3 dropper fulls. That is actually coming together really nicely. I think I need just a tiny, like 3 or 4 drops more, not a whole lot. Just to get them to come together a little bit more. There we go. That's what I like to see. So that is going in our last space. Drop some right there. So we'll move that out of the way. And this one's going into our last pan right here. This one is a little bit drier, so I probably could have used a tiny bit more alcohol. You can see how it's a little bit more crumbly when I'm trying to spread it out, but that is, I'd rather it be a little bit too dry than have it be runny. All right, so we have it spread out. Let's go ahead and do our first tamp down. See how that's looking. Looking good. So I'm going to need to pull my mirror up so that I have a flat surface that I'm pushing down on. Very nice. All right. Let me brush some of the fall over. Clean up some of these real quick. So those are our 4 shades. I think that they all did come out a little bit different. These 2 look similar, but we can see that this one here is just a smidge darker. But I think that all of these will work for my skin tone. I'm not going to weigh it right now because it is going to be a little bit heavier with the alcohol still in the product, and then also I'm going to clean up the edges a little bit, so I'll end up losing a tiny bit of product doing that. I'm not going to repress this one until I expand the pan a whole lot more. I'm still able to get my brush into this one really, really well, so I'm not going to repress this one yet. But let me clean up my tools a little bit, and then we're going to make that final blushy highlighter in my Pat McGrath palette. So this pan is shallower, and so it only had 3.55 grams in it, so I'm going to have to be aware of what, and I'm just spraying rubbing alcohol and cleaning my dish out. And I just have to be aware of how much product I am mixing up to go in there. That rubbing alcohol is doing a number on my nails. If you guys want to see what's on my nails, I'll see about linking it down below, but it'll definitely be in my buys and buys that is coming up on the 14th. I will be letting you guys know that I bought some new nail polish, and this one will definitely be in there. Hopefully looking a little bit better than rubbing alcohol going at it. So let me move this out of the way. Bring this in. So we're at a 0. Let me see how much is in here. That's already 3 grams. Oof. Okay. I think we're just going to have to go with it and see what we can do, but I'm going to take the rest of the Pat McGrath highlighter and put it in there as well and see what we come up with. So that is 4.5 grams. That is going to be hard to fit into this pan over here, but we will try to see what we can get in there, and then I can see what I can do with the rest. But let me go ahead and mix this up and we will see what color we end up getting. All right, so let's get this all squished up and mixed together. I'm just pushing the back of the spoon into the container, which is kind of grinding. If you think of like a mortar and pestle, that is kind of the action that we're doing here with squishing these larger pieces. But that is definitely a dark shade that is very pink, so we will see what we end up getting. Kind of reminds me of the Ofra Chiclet blush that I mixed together. Kind of reminds me of those two sides. But let me go ahead and take a spot further down on my arm and see what we get. I mean, it's a very pretty color. It kind of reminds me of, remember the Becca blushes that were named after all of the flowers? There was one called Tiger Lily that I always wanted, and this kind of reminds me of the Tiger Lily shade because it pulls that orange. So we will have to see how that ends up looking on the cheeks as a blush. But like I said, I don't think all of this is going to fit in there. So let me measure out 3.5 grams and then go from there. Okay, we're at 3 grams, 3.4, 3.55, which is what we pulled out of there in the first place, and we still have all of this left. So we'll have to see what we can do with this here. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of transferring around, but I just want to make sure that my weights are right. And I might just have to set this aside and mix it in with another blush down the line. If I want to franken something to make it glowy, I might, or this might be good to mix into a bronzer down the line if I want to make a bronzer glowy. But I might have to hold on to that one and do something with it later, but we're going to take our 3.55 grams out of here, and this is what we're going to repress into the Pat McGrath palette. So just like the square blank, they also came in round ones. I picked up a set of these, so they came with 6 of them, and actually one of the smallest sizes of the blanks is the perfect size to repress the mini ColourPop eyeshadows. So I was actually looking for a specific size for repressing the ColourPop shadows, and it just so happened that this came in a pack of 6. So I am very pleased with those, and like I said, I will link them down below in case you guys are interested, but you definitely do not need special tools for this. You have plenty of other makeup items and compacts that are about the same size as all this, which actually, if you're ever repressing ColourPop shadows and you have one of the Too Faced RX pillow balms, the cap of that is the same exact size as a ColourPop shadow. So you can use the cap of the pillow balms to repress your shadows. But let's see about getting this into here and pressed down. All of that came out very nicely. I grabbed a clean Kleenex. So I think I'm going to just start in the middle and kind of press until I find my edges. And because this is not a perfect fit, of course I'm going to have to adjust and kind of get my product back in the pan where it belongs. And I don't mind using my finger. This is my makeup. Nobody else is going to use this. And I'm kind of curious if I do have anything about the same size that I could use to press with. So the closest thing I have is an old Benefit container. And that actually worked really well. Let's give it another push. Because it's not a perfect fit, it ends up kind of squishing up on the sides, but that's real easy to kind of tamp back down. I think that is as good as I'm going to get it. So that is our last highlighter that we're doing, and highlighting type of blush. And let me see if I can get some remnants out of here, and again do a little bit of a swatch. See, that'll just be a beautiful kind of golden orange. Ooh, that'll look so pretty as a blush topper. And again, I'm going to put the rest of this aside. I'll seal it up in a container, and I'll be able to franken this in with something else later down the line. But I am very happy with the one pan that I was able to franken in this one. And then if I reach behind me, my other pans that I was able to franken in here. That's going to be so much fun. I will go ahead and I'm going to clean all this up, and then other me will be popping up doing an outro and telling you the final weights and the different changes on these, and show you guys what these look like when everything has dried down. But I hope that you guys liked this repressing video and that it is helpful and has answered any questions that you guys have about how I repress. But I'll go ahead and send it over to future Erin. All right, so that was all of my highlighters being taken apart, repressed, and put into their new homes. Now, I will say, after I filmed that video and after the items had dried, I did end up making some other executive decisions and kind of rearranging some things. So that is this portion of the video where I'm going to show you what everything else ended up looking like. The one thing that stayed the same is my Tarte highlighting palette, and so all dried and good to go. Let me make sure I'm in frame. This is what we are looking like. Look at those beautiful, beautiful highlighters. I told you guys that I was not going to repress this one. I'm okay with where it's at. I almost repressed it again just because I wanted this to look clean and beautiful, but once that pan has gotten a little bit bigger, I will repress that one back down again. But this is what we're looking like. I will have some arm swatches popping up with the shades, and if we look at the arm swatches, we go from this way with my naming. But this is beautiful, and I think that these have enough tone differences that they are different highlights. Right now on my face, I do have this one here. So that is the highlight that is on my cheeks, and oh, absolutely beautiful. So I am very, very happy with this. While I'm pulling up my spreadsheet, again, I'll run the arm swatches of that palette so you guys can see what it's looking like, but absolutely beautiful, beautiful shades. What I'm pulling up my spreadsheets for is I do want to let you guys know that my inventory and my highlighter spreadsheet will look a little bit different going forward. I'll take a screen grab of my spreadsheet and let you guys know what it looks like. But basically what I did is I am completely, quote unquote, decluttering the Fenty highlights from my collection. Because they are pretty much no more, there's no way for me to know that this actual highlight went into this actual pan, and when that pan's done, this product will be done. There's no way for me to know since I mixed everything together. So I did take the cost of those two Fenty highlights along with the original cost of this Tarte palette. I added all of that together, I divided it by 4, and that is how I got the $28.50 per pan is the cost of this product. So if I end up using up an entire pan of this product, that would be a $28.50 empty in my collection. But as you guys can see, the quote unquote 5 highlighters that I have in my collection now is each pan that's in here, and then my Becca Moonstone, which I did not touch and I did not repress in this video. So those are going to be the 5 highlighters in my collection going forward. And you might think to yourself, actually, I think I touched on this, that my Bridgerton palette used to have a highlighter in it. Now that I have repressed everything, that is a completely blush palette. So that has been rolled into my blush inventory. So again, my inventory numbers at the middle of the year might look a little bit different, but if you guys have watched this video, and of course I'll touch on that in July when that video goes live, I will touch on that as well. But now that we know what this looks like, oh, I wanted to show you guys what my weight is that I'm rolling into my project pan. So the total weight for this completely repressed and dried is 121.55 grams. The way I'm tracking this is uses on each pan, so I do have that divided up in my panning journal, and I'm putting a little mark for each pan that I end up using. Again, because I don't know how much product really went into each pan, I can't speculate on the weights of each pan, but definitely I want to get really good use. And for my future self in my next project pan update, my goal, of course, is to be using this palette and hitting pan on every single one of these and just seeing how much use I can get out of this one. But I did add 8.5 grams of product to this palette, so definitely this will not be an empty for many, many years, and I'm very okay with that because it is a beautiful, beautiful highlighter palette. Let me roll, as a puppy dog gets comfortable and shakes my tripod, let me roll into my Bridgerton palette. So this is what we are looking like now. So this down here is the repressed blush slash highlighter, and I'll explain. Maybe I need to hold up all of them to explain what I ended up doing. So this was the executive decision. I actually ended up repressing the highlighters into this, and it actually turned into a color that was very similar to the original color that was in here, and that color didn't work for me, and that was the whole reason that I repressed. So this is my Z palette with all of my depotted blushes in it, and these two down here are new. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the rest of the product that went into here and then some blushes, and I created 3 new blushes for myself. Now all of these are like sparkly glowy blushes because they do have highlighter in them. So these would have a lot of the Pat McGrath highlighter and then the pink Fenty highlighter. That is what went into these. I do have arm swatches of these coming up as well. So the way that I ended up putting it into my inventory is this is now a completely blush palette. This blush down here is absolutely beautiful. And I know I have arm swatches coming up, but let me see if I can. Look at that shade. Absolutely beautiful. So it is like a dusty mauve type of color. So I'm very happy with the way that this blush palette came out. I was not reaching for it for the highlighter. So now that it is all blushes, I think I'm going to reach for this a whole lot more. Now I did rename, quote unquote, or I named my new blushes that I made, but for this one, since it's in a palette, I kept this one in my inventory. This is just called Nude Venus, which is what the highlighter was called, but that is what the blush is now called in my inventory. But looking at these two, and I have a puppy that is just making himself comfortable underneath, and I say puppy, but he is our 130-pound dog, so Jane is making himself comfortable under my tripod. But these two here are our new ones that I made. So this one here, I ended up naming Cleavy. And I was looking for, and bless it if I ever like make makeup and have to name things. I'm always searching for the meaning behind things. But this one reminded me of a very, like, it's very earthy toned. It's like it when you're playing in clay. And so I was like, give me some names that mean clay. And Cleavy, and I think it is either Celtic, I think it's a Celtic meaning. I'll have to put maybe something down on the screen about the meaning of that name, but that's what I came up for this one, and it is also very beautiful. This is the blush that I have on my cheeks today. So this is a mixture of some of the highlight shades and the Physicians Formula. So it's just a little bit brighter, and I'm making like the worst swatch position on my arm possible. But this was the Physician Formula, was it Marula? Not Marula, what was it? But this was the Physician's Formula. I'll pop the original product up on the screen, but this was the Physician's Formula blush that I mixed with the rest of the highlighter and a little bit of the Fenty highlight, and this is the shade that I got, and it is absolutely stunning. I mean, look at the highlight and look at that blush color. Very happy with Miss Cleavy over here. And then this other shade here, this one is very red, and I absolutely love it. This is a mix of a lot of the pink Fenty highlight, the really intense pink one. This is a lot of that, and this is the e.l.f. blush in Fiji. So that is what this one came out to be, and it is just a beautiful red color. Oh, love it. So that one is a little bit more intense compared to the other two, but oh my goodness, it is such a beautiful shade. And I ended up naming this one Rowan. And so that means, it means red, because I looked up meanings, you know, names and meanings of red, but that is like red hair or like based in red. So I definitely love the name Rowan for that shade. And so those are my two blushes that I ended up making, and I absolutely love them. So I am happy with the choice that I made to turn the rest of these and mix some more of those shades in with blushes that were not really inspiring me as matte blushes. So I'm happy to have the blushes. And I was able to make one more product with the remnants of the highlighters, and that would be an eyeshadow. So this is my remnants. I'm using the word remnants a lot, but this is the leftovers of my Give It To Me Straight palette from ColourPop that I was doing my Pan That palette last year on. But this shade right here, which is actually the shade that is on my lids, that is the leftovers of the highlighters. So it almost has a little bit of a duochrome shift to it where it's really bright, but it's also orange. And so this is just, and again, you guys can see it on my eyes, but this is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that shade. It is so smooth. It is so pigmented. I love that I had just enough to press into a little eyeshadow pan and add a little bit more sparkle to this palette here. So I just popped that into this 9 pan to kind of add a little bit more of a warm sparkle, and I absolutely love that. Like I said, this look that I have on today is beautiful. Beautiful and simple. I mean, we're just going out to get my husband a haircut today and to run to Target, so I didn't need anything really spicy today, but definitely love that I was able to make that. So I was able to make 3 full pans of highlight, 3 new blushes, and an eyeshadow out of everything that I pulled apart and repressed from my collection. I am so thrilled with this kind of experiment that I did with repressing. I hope that you guys also enjoyed watching this very long video of me taking apart and repressing my products. I hope that this maybe helps you repress your items in the future, but definitely I am very happy that I did this in my own collection, and I feel like I'm going to be getting a whole lot more use out of my products this way. So this video is already so long, so I'm not going to ramble, but you guys know, do all the things. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this repressing. Go ahead and leave me a comment down below if you are planning on repressing. I know a few of you told me in my last video that you're planning to repress some highlighters as well, so I hope that this was helpful. Drop me a comment down below and let me know how your repressing went. Of course, subscribe for more. We have more project panning, conscious consumerism, eyeshadow, all that jazz coming up. I have already filmed my buys and buys. That will go up on the 14th, so you won't want to miss my haul and my empties. So definitely stick around for that. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and I will catch you very shortly in my next one.